All rise.
You may be seated. Today, we will hear the case of plaintiff Pat Minister against defendant Dr. Stark. This is a civil suit, and we will begin by hearing the opening statements from the plaintiff. Excuse me, let me start all over.
All witnesses rise. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or reaffirm that the testimony and evidence you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Judge needs a chair. All right, now we will begin with the opening statement from the plaintiff.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Yasmin Lang, and here with me today are my affiliates, Tolly, Eli O'Mason, and Charles Gibson Esquire. We represent the mother of Courtney Lannister, or Pat Lannister, my bad. Pat Lannister, and Miss Lannister was a bright young woman, an honor in high school, and she was a freshman at Rock State University who hoped to pursue medical school. On May 23rd, 2011, Miss Lannister life was cut short by her intermittent boyfriend, Alex Greyjoy, who took his life the same day. Miss Lannister was shot and killed by Mr. Greyjoy when she went to retrieve her belongings from his house. Miss Lannister was not aware that on May 15, 2011, Mr. Greyjoy said to his psychiatrist, Dr. Stark, that he wanted to hurt her as she had hurt him. Miss Lannister was not aware of the danger she was in because she was not properly warned due to the negligence of Dr. Stark. But Dr. Stark, the death of Miss Lannister and Mr. Greyjoy would have been avoided if Dr. Stark did her job as a doctor by further questioning Mr. Greyjoy when he said he was thinking of hurting his girlfriend, and notifying Courtney that Mr. Greyjoy wished to harm her. But Dr. Stark did none of this. What she did do was fail to give the standard of care that is subject to all patients. Dr. Stark allowed for the murder of Miss Lannister and the suicide of Mr. Greyjoy. Today, my affiliates and I will prove that Dr. Stark is guilty of malpractice and failure to give warning, resulting in 2 deaths that could have easily been prevented. Thank you.
Opening statement from the defense.
Your Honor, counsel for the plaintiff and members of the jury. We are defending Lindsay Stark in this case. The evidence will indicate my client, Lindsay Stark, is innocent of medical malpractice and failure to warn. Alex Greyjoy never indicated any violent behavior on any previous hospital admission. There is no reason to believe my client, Lindsay Stark, of any medical malpractice or failure to warn. She did the best she could in her job, and Alex Greyjoy never indicated that he was violent in any previous hospital admissions. Therefore, there was never any reason to believe he was violent in any way towards Courtney Lannister. He caused Courtney Lannister's death, and it is wrong to blame Dr. Stark for this terrible event.
Okay, thank you. So we'll hear first from the plaintiff. You may call your first case.
I call Pat Lannister to the stand. Hi, Miss Pat Lannister. Could you please state your name and your affiliation with this case?
My name is Pat Lannister, and my daughter is Courtney Lannister. She was killed by her boyfriend, Alex Griffin.
Please state your relationship with Courtney Lannister.
We were very close. She always talked to me about everything. We always texted and talked on the phone. In fact, she had just told me on the phone that she was going over to Alex's house before she was killed.
So, explain to me how you felt the day that you went over to Alex's house and found that Courtney and Alex were both dead.
I was very upset and hurt because I knew that he had some issues before, and he had went to the doctor about certain issues that he was having.
Now, when Alex and Courtney would have an argument, what would Alex do after said argument?
He would threaten to commit suicide.
So, when Courtney tried to break up with Alex, what did he do?
He also told her that he was going to hurt himself or kill himself.
Okay, and then, so, how did you feel whenever the doctors told you that they couldn't have said anything to Courtney because of doctor-patient confidentiality?
I was very upset and angry about that because the fact is that he had told her that he was going to hurt her, and it was her job to warn my daughter that he threatened her.
Now, in my research, I found that if a patient is showing signs of imminent danger toward a person, then they are allowed to break the doctor confidentiality agreement and tell the person who is dedicated for it. That is all. Those are all the questions.
Thank you. Ross?
Hi. Okay. Is it true that Courtney and Alex had been together for several years?
Yes.
And were you aware of your daughter's boyfriend and that he had a pattern of medical depression?
Yes.
And didn't he attempt suicide 3 times prior to his admission? And did Alex ever indicate or threaten physical violence toward your daughter to your knowledge?
She had told me before that he would get very angry, but I didn't believe her because I figured that she was putting it out there a lot more than it was.
Okay, and to your knowledge, did your daughter file any kind of police report document, or did you ever encourage her to do so? So, if you're aware of Alex Greyjoy's history, then don't you think that you should have gone to the apartment with her?
Well, if I were to sit there
Answer
and
my
tell her,
questions, please.
no.
And did you ever encourage her to permanently break up with Alex Greyjoy? And upon any of those times, did he ever physically harm her? All right, no more further questions.
You may step down. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, we call Francis Terry from the stand. Please state your name, not your position.
My name is
Alex Greyjoy?
Yes, I have, and in his medical records, particularly in May 16th, 2011, Alex Greyjoy stated that he wanted to hurt himself, and later in the records it also said that he had the intention of hurting Miss Pat Lannister the same way that she hurt him. And to my knowledge, the doctors, Mr. Stark and Mr. Tolly, that had been in charge of the representation, should have warned the proper authorities and staff about this imminent threat.
And do you, in your opinion, do you believe that Dr. Stark actually provided the standard of care required of Mr. Greyjoy?
In my medical opinion, I don't believe so, because there should have been some warning or some indication that Mr. Alex Greyjoy was going to hurt himself and hurt Miss Lannister, this threat. And
in your opinion, did the doctors fulfill their duty in warning the victim or their superiors of an imminent threat?
no, this should have been reported to authorities, the proper authorities, immediately when this happened. But there was no record of, even though they state that they questioned what he meant about hurting himself and Miss Lannister, they never did record this in the medical records. So I don't think they meant the standard there in my medical.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. That was all I have.
Thank you. You may cross.
Dr. Credit, in your affidavit, it clearly states that Mr. Greyjoy didn't display any other forms of violence. Is that true?
To my knowledge, it is true.
Is it true that Mr. Greyjoy had no history of physically harming anyone, let alone Miss Lannister?
No, but he did indicate that he had the intentions of harming his girlfriend as she did him.
I said no history in the past.
Yeah.
Is it true that in the medical report, hurt wasn't defined, so the connotation could be emotional?
It's very true, so it can also be physical, so that would be classified as an imminent threat.
Okay. You may step down. Jury, are you able to hear everyone clearly? Should we turn off the air conditioner, or is it okay? All right. You may call your next witness.
Your Honor, we call Sam Bolton to the stand. Alright. State your name and current occupation.
I am Sam Bolton. I'm currently a medical doctor in my second year of postgraduate psychiatry residency at a local hospital in Chicago, Illinois.
How are you associated with this trial?
Well, in May 2011, I was a medical student at Clearwater Medical Center, and I worked closely with Dr. Lindsay Stark.
Now, why did you decide to specialize in psychiatry?
Well, I have belief that I want to help people not to hurt themselves because I had a twin brother who committed suicide at 17 years old.
Now, please describe Dr. Stark's professionalism towards you.
Well, Dr. Stark would try to make me seem inferior to her and the other students.
Isn't that an opinion?
Would you like to answer?
No.
No. But he's stating how he felt, so there's no definite fact.
Okay, I'm going to allow for now.
So she would try to make me seem inferior to her and other students by asking me questions that she thought were tough, but I could easily answer them because I was valedictorian of my class.
Alright, now, would you please just explain or describe your interactions with Alex Greyjoy?
The first time I saw Alex Greyjoy was when he checked himself in the Clearwater Medical Center. I was making rounds with Dr. Stark, and he checked himself in for suicidal thoughts and depression. The second time I saw him was during the questioning of Dr. Stark to Alex Greyjoy when he expressed his thoughts of hurting his girlfriend.
Alright. Now, what concern did you have for Courtney of any kind for her safety?
For her safety, I always thought that Mr. Greyjoy was not getting the proper treatment, and I communicated this belief to Dr. Stark, but she dismissed my concerns. I also communicated in the group rounds that we should try to contact Mrs. Lannister, not to warn her of any danger, but just to obtain her accounts with her interactions with Mr. Greyjoy, and if she thought that he was a potential harm to her.
Alright, no further questions. Thank you.
You may cross.
Mr. Bolton, isn't it true that you are currently a medical student, MD in residency at a public hospital in Chicago?
Yes.
Isn't it true that you worked with Dr. Stark as a medical student in May of 2011?
Yes.
Is it true that your medical school peers labeled you as socially inept, a bit self-righteous, and not very tactful?
Yes, in their opinion.
On May 16, 2011, when you made a statement in your attorney's office, you said that you were dressed down by Dr. Stark, didn't you?
Yes, that's correct.
Judging by your history with Dr. Stark, isn't it true that you were not very fond of her?
I never said I was not fond of her.
Yes or no?
No.
Is this your way of getting back at Dr. Stark for not dismissing your concerns in front of other students, Mr. Bolton?
Like I said, it was...
Yes or no questions?
No.
Thank you.
You may step down. Does the plaintiff's attorneys have any other witnesses?
We do not.
The defense? Do you have any witnesses that you would like to call?
I'd like to call Dr. Stark. Dr. Stark, can you give us a brief description of your work experience?
Well, I've been a licensed psychiatrist for 23 years, and in the past 5 years, I have worked at Greyjoy Medical Center.
Wow, that's a really long time. Can you tell us what happened on May 16th?
I had the pleasure to evaluate Mr. Greyjoy, and from his past records, he was a patient with suicidal ideations, most of which occurred after him and his girlfriend got into fights and broke up.
In your questioning, he said that he wanted to hurt his girlfriend in the same manner that she had hurt him. Why did you find it so relevant?
I found that statement relevant because he said it in an answer towards one of my questions, which I asked, what were you thinking in your previous suicide attempt in April, just a month before? It was not a freestanding comment. He indicates how he wants to hurt her in the same way she hurt him, which was emotional.
In the examination of Sam Bolton, he says that he brings the danger of Mr. Greyjoy to your attention. Can you tell us what actually happened?
I don't recall Mr. Bolton ever bringing any legitimate concern. He does tend to overreact over small situations.
Cross.
Alright, Stark. So you said you've been practicing for 23 years, is that correct?
Yes.
Alright. And is it true that you don't get paid for sessions with someone who doesn't have medical insurance? Alright. So how much time did you spend with Mr. Greyjoy exactly? 0. Okay, she's nothing. Okay. So, do you think that it might have been possible that since you weren't getting paid from him, that you didn't want to spend your hardest fixing him or trying to get him to do better?
Objection? Is that an opinion?
So the rule, he's asking her. Oh, never know.
Now, so you said that Alex Greyjoy, he told you that he said that he was going to hurt his girlfriend, is that correct? Alright.
But in the same way she would hurt him.
Now, so you said that in your professional opinion, that you thought that he was going to hurt her emotionally, as in how she hurt him.
By his statement, yes, but no physical harm.
Alright. But that is your opinion.
Yes, my professional opinion.
Alright. So do you think that you should have maybe asked other doctors for their opinions, or maybe taking it upon yourself to be careful and protect the daughter of this woman who is now dead?
Well, yes, I asked him several times what he meant by her.
So then, since he never clarified, don't you think that you should have, I don't know, been careful and trying to save lives as a psychiatrist? That's what you promised to do.
Yes.
Alright, no further questions.
You may start.
I would like to call Chris Tolly to the stand. Can you state your name for records and describe your occupation, please?
I'm Chris Tully, and I am a licensed psychiatrist in the state of Mississippi. I am currently in postgraduate in psychiatry at Clearwater Medical Center.
Now, directing your attention to May 16, 2011, when you were a med student working under Dr. Stark, can you tell the court what occurred?
May 16th was the day of the evaluation of Mr. Alex Greyjoy. I was present during this evaluation, and I took notes regarding the discussion. And I gave these notes to Dr. Stark.
Can you tell us who else was present with Dr. Stark when she was examining Mr. Greyjoy?
That would be Sam Bolton.
And what contact have you had with Mr. Sam Bolton?
Mr. Bolton was also in my class in med school. He was also present during the evaluation of Mr. Alex Greyjoy. And during the discussion, he and Ms. Stark had a short debate over the evaluation. I do not remember exactly what had happened because it was not clinically significant, but I can remember that he did not prevail.
Okay, and can you describe for us the examination of Mr. Alex Greyjoy?
Like I said, I was present during this evaluation. I remember taking notes, and in my notes I said patient was thinking of harming girlfriend as she had done to him, and at that time it was obvious, it was clear that he had meant emotional harm.
Can you describe the nature of their relationship, Courtney and Alex?
He had always expressed much concern of losing his girlfriend. He had obviously not wanted to lose her, and he thought that she would leave him because of his clinical depression.
And can you describe any violent acts towards Courtney from Mr. Alex Greyjoy?
I cannot.
And thank you, Your Honor. No more further questions.
Mrs. Jones, in your statement, that you, in your examination, you said that Mr. Greyjoy had made a threat against Courtney. How were you to know that it was an emotional level?
Because there was no record of any physical damage to Mr. Greyjoy.
Could you prove it was an emotional level?
I could not.
Did you give Mr. Greyjoy as any kind of threat at the time? Any threat?
Emotional threat.
And so his history of suicidal attempts was not related to physical, but to anyone.
No, just himself.
Did you write down the threat Mr. Greyjoy may consider Mrs. Lannister?
I did. I said the patient was thinking of harming his girlfriend as she had done to him.
You missed that now. Any further witnesses?
Your Honor, I would call Robinson to the stand.
Please state your name and your occupation.
My name is Dr. Robin Snow, and I'm a licensed psychiatrist in the state of Mississippi.
Can you tell us about your education?
I studied at Harvard Medical School, and where I graduated with honors, and then I completed my residency as a psychiatrist.
As the expert witness, can you tell us about Mr. Greyjoy's medical history?
There was never any history of violence with Mr. Greyjoy. Never any threatened violence to anybody, never any verbal violence. And in my opinion, you can only take his statement to mean that he wanted to emotionally harm Mrs. Lannister.
Directing your attention to May 16th, 2011, could you please tell the court what occurred?
Mr. Greyjoy checked himself into Clearwater Medical Center and with depression and suicidal ideations.
Can you please voice your professional opinion about Alex Greyjoy's state of mind?
He was suicidal but never violent.
So he wouldn't.
He would never hurt anybody.
So that would give Lindsay Stark no reason to believe that he was violent.
Correct.
Would you describe for us why you believe Dr. Stark is innocent of malpractice and failure to warn?
I believe she's innocent of malpractice because you couldn't really tell how it was going to turn out, and there was never a breach in the quality of care that she gave to him. And I believe she is innocent of failure to warn because he never made any physical threats, and you can only tell somebody if it was a physical threat to somebody.
And because he was never violent on any previous hospital admissions, what if Dr. Stark would have warned anyone, would it have been against hospital rules?
Ross?
Is it true that all doctors that all psychiatrists are obligated to tell someone if a threat's been made on them, if a threat's been made against them?
Yes, but there was never a physical threat.
Could you prove it was physical? Could you prove it was emotional, not physical? Could anyone prove it was physical, not emotional? In your opinion?
You may check the back.
It's true that Dr. Stark prescribed Mr. Greyjoy Prozac, correct? And Prozac can cause suicidal ideations, violent tendencies, and a loss of reality, correct? Would you say that it's at all possible that Mr. Greyjoy could have experienced any of those symptoms while taking this medication? Mr. Greyjoy had a long line of problems with Courtney, correct?
That's correct.
No further questions, Jeff.
All right. Do we have any further witnesses for the defense? Okay, so now we're ready for our closing statements. Closing for the plaintiff, Pat Lannister.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, as you have seen, my colleagues and I have proven to you that Dr. Stark is guilty of malpractice and failure to warn. Dr. Stark's shortcoming as a doctor killed Miss Lannister and Mr. Greyjoy. Do not allow Dr. Stark to rinse the blood of her victims and the stigma attached to mental illness. Help us give Miss Lannister and Mr. Greyjoy and their families justice. The evidence we have presented today clearly shows Dr. Stark is at fault for not upholding proper standard of care. Your Honor, you have carefully listened and you have heard the facts in this case. Now you must decide further. Thank you.
Closing for the defense.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, with the evidence brought to your attention today, we have proven without a doubt that there was no definite evidence for Lindsay Stark to report Mr. Greyjoy. In the cross-examination with Francis Frey, he clearly states in the affidavit that there is no other expressed violence desired by Alex to hurt Courtney, besides him uttering the word hurt in the most recent session. And there is no definite meaning of the hurt in the medical records. It could have been emotional, which should give no intent for anyone to be harmed in any imminent way. In the cross-examination of Sam Bolton, we proved that he was a bit self-righteous and impulsive. Both Dr. Tolly and Dr. Stark write about how he is often quick to recommend intense and unnecessary treatment without fully grasping the whole situation. Sam Bolton also loathed Dr. Stark because he felt as if he wasn't appreciated by her. So this may lessen the credibility of Dr. Bolton, who hates Dr. Stark. With the evidence shown today, we have proven without a doubt that Dr. Stark has not committed negligence, failure to report, and malpractice. She has followed her intuition and did not report something that was no imminent danger.
Thank you. Thank you, counsel. Now, jury, it is up to you to decide. But before you go, I have to explain the law, because you cannot base your decision on who you like best, who you think did best, who you think smiled the most, or who you think was clearest. All you can base your decision on is the law. And so I'm going to read to you the two charges brought against the defendant. And if you believe that the defendant is guilty of these two charges, then you must find her guilty. You may find guilty on one and not the other. So here are the two charges. The first is the duty to warn. And here's what the law says. Mississippi Code 412197. If there is an actual threat of physical violence against a clearly identified or reasonably identifiable potential victim or victims, and then the treating physician, psychologist, social worker, or licensed professional counselor may communicate the threat only to the potential victim or victims, a law enforcement agency, or to the parent or guardian of a minor who is identified as a potential victim. That is charge one, failure to duty to warn. Charge two is medical malpractice. To find Dr. Stark guilty of medical malpractice, you must find that Dr. Stark did not meet the reasonable standard of care, that the doctor failed to conform to this standard, and because of that failure, a party was injured. If you find for medical malpractice, that is the law. You must find that there was a breach of standard of care, and because of that breach of standard of care, someone was harmed. So, you may find guilty on duty to warn, or innocent on duty to warn, guilty on malpractice, or innocent on malpractice. So you must follow the law. You may now be excused to discuss and deliberate. All rise. Exit. Let's go over there. It's too crowded. Court will take a recess until a jury returns. Stay close. Court is in order. You may be seated. Members of the jury, have you reached a verdict?
Yes, Your Honor. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty of both charges.
Thank you. Congratulations to both teams.